Alright, so Dana White basically confirmed that we're most likely running it back with Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira. Yes, we're having Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira too. And look, I just want to say this right now. Magomed won that fight fair and square. In my last video, I mentioned that it could have gone either way, but after rewatching it, I really think Ankalaev deserves the win. Round 3 was definitely close, but if you're scoring it properly, you gotta give it to Magomed. Now, the real discussion is about this rematch. We all saw how close the first fight was, and most importantly, we saw how hesitant Alex was at times. So today, I want to break down what this second fight could potentially look like. Because yeah, Alex did make some mistakes in that fight, but at the same time, Magomed had a really solid performance, though there are still some areas he can still improve on. The big question here is, can Alex really make the right adjustments and win this time? And honestly, I think the answer is yes. There are definitely things he can tweak to make this fight more competitive, but the real challenge is whether he can do enough to deal with the pressure and the takedown threat of Ankalaev while still being effective with the striking. That's what we're going to get into today. Now, we all know that Pereira likes to pressure forward, feint, and get his read before unloading those heavy shots, but every time he tried to step in or commit, Ankalaev would fire back immediately, whether it was a sharp counter, right hand, or even just making Alex eat a jab on his way in. The consistent threat made Pereira second guess his timing, and instead of flowing and letting his striking go like he usually does, you could see him freeze up, waiting too long, and hesitating when he normally wouldn't. And that's the thing, Ankalaev didn't just counter for the sake of it, he made Alex feel every entry was dangerous. And once you plant that seed of doubt in the striker's head, especially someone like Pereira, who thrives on rhythm and confident, it completely changed their approach. That's why Alex wasn't throwing as much. This is why he looked more cautious than usual, and ultimately why he struggled to get into his usual flow. And yeah, man, that was one of the most frustrating parts of the fight. Alex just didn't let his hands go like he did against Yuri or even when he fought Khalil Roundtree. In those fights, he was more aggressive, willing to take risks, and actually push his opponent back. But against Ankalaev, it was like he was stuck in first gear, just waiting, hesitating, and never really taking the opening that were right there for him. Because there were moments where Magomed left himself open, whether it was throwing a counter or resetting his stance, but Alex just didn't pull the trigger. And because of that, Ankalaev never felt any pressure. He was comfortable, he dictated the pace, and Pereira was the one that was reacting the whole time instead of forcing his own game. And honestly, it felt like Alex spent his whole camp just training takedown defense and forgot about his striking, because the guy we saw in there didn't look the same. He didn't look like the same Pereira who was sniping people and walking them down. It looked like he was fighting scared to make a mistake, like the Tyrone the Frozen One Woodley out there, you know? And that's not just going to cut it in a rematch. If he wants to win, he has to be the one that's pushing Ankalaev back, making him uncomfortable, and actually committing to his offense. Otherwise, it's going to be the same result all over again. So what can Alex do in a rematch to adjust and give himself a better shot at winning? One of the reasons why Ankalaev was able to time his counters so effectively was because Pereira was stepping in with predictable patterns. Alex has a habit of using the same kind of setups, low kicks to establish range, feints to draw reactions, then stepping in with his power shot. But against a sharp counter striker like Ankalaev, that just wasn't going to work consistently. In this rematch, he's got to be more unpredictable, mix up his tempo, throw in more level changes, and use more feints to make Ankalaev hesitate instead of the other way around. Second, he can't let Ankalaev control the pace. A big reason why Alex looked hesitant because Magomed dictated when exchanges happened. Instead of waiting and reacting to Ankalaev's counters, Pereira needed to force Ankalaev into uncomfortable situations. That could mean pressing him against the cage more, cutting him off, use his movement better, and using more layered strikes approach instead of singles, explosive shots. Third, he's got to find a way to make Ankalaev respect the power early. In the first fight, Ankalaev wasn't as worried about eating those shots because he was comfortable in the exchange. If Pereira can land something clean in the early rounds, maybe a heavy leg kick that forces Ankalaev to adjust his stance, or a strong body shot that can slow him down, it can change the dynamic of the fight. Lastly, he needs to be mentally committed to throwing. The hesitation killed a lot of his chances in that first fight. If he overthinks every shot, Ankalaev will just take over and control again. He needs to trust his power, let the shots go, and force Ankalaev into a fight rather than a technical chess match where he's getting countered all night. If Pereira makes these adjustments, the rematch can look very different, but if he hesitates again and lets Ankalaev dictate this fight, we might just see a repeat of the first one, because in a rematch, oh yeah, he could do better, no doubt about it, but let's not act like he's the only one making adjustments here, because of Big Ank, man. He's got some things that he can sharpen up too in this rematch. First off, the wrestling. Now, let's be real. Alex did a damn good job stopping it in the first fight. Ankalaev shot in there, tried to get control, and Pereira handled himself extremely well. But that doesn't mean Ankalaev should just abandon it, in my opinion. If anything, he needs to lean into it even more. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment of shooting or shooting too far out, he's got to chain wrestle into his striking and make it a real threat throughout the fight. We know Ankalaev is capable. He's strong in the clinch. He can grind guys out when he commits. And he doesn't need to dominate on the ground just to make it work. Just get Alex thinking about the takedown is enough to slow down the striking, because if Ankalaev can't get the takedown, that's fine, but he can still use the threat of it to set up his shots, push Alex against the cage, and drain his energy. Now, in their first fight, Ankalaev actually did a damn pretty good job controlling the front. He wasn't just standing in the kill zone getting lit up, he was keeping Alex off balance with his sharp counters and smart footwork. But the issue was he didn't always commit to one way or the other. He had his moments where he pressured well and cut off angles, but there was also times when he kind of hovered in that mid-range without fully engaging or exiting, which is where Alex is the most dangerous. In the rematch, Ank has to double down on what works. Either stay all the way out and make Alex overextend, or get in close and smother him before those power shots start flowing. No in between. None of that half committing movement where Alex gets to set his feet and launch a nuke. Because even though Ankalaev did well in those exchanges, giving Pereira too many reads is playing with fire. The longer you let Alex comfortable, the higher the chance of finding that perfect shot. Oh, and the leg kicks. Ankalaev is solid defensively, but if he's not checking those kicks or countering them, they're gonna add up fast. And that's the thing with Pereira's kicks. They're normally unblockable. The way he sets them up, disguising them behind the feints, and throwing them with almost no tail. It's not as simple as just lifting your legs to check. You eat too many of those and suddenly your movement is compromised and your ability to explode in counters or takedowns is gone. So what's the move? You can't just stand there and take them. Ankalaev has to either shoot in the moment where Pereira commits to his kicks, because that's when his base is his weakest, or fire back immediately on top with a hard counter. Whether it's a big right hand over the top or using that opening to change levels and get inside, he has to make Alex pay for throwing those kicks. So yeah, Alex can definitely make adjustments. That's always a part of the game. But let's not act like Big Ank is just sitting around doing nothing. The guy's got tools, he's got the experience, and if he actually leans into what works for him, this rematch can look completely different. It can look completely like domination. Now, looking at this fight, I get why people are thinking Alex has a shot. The guy striking is on another level, and if he lands clean, it could be game over. Simple as that. But at the same time, styles make fights, and Magomed Ankalaev is just a nightmare matchup for him. And that's the thing, even if I think Alex could win, the percentages are always going to lean towards Ankalaev at the end of the day. The way he fights, the way he controls the pace, the fact that he's got that grappling threat, it just favors him too much in this matchup. So while Alex has a puncher's chance, when you really break it down, Ankalaev is the safer pick.